are you mainly a musical writer? Do you write a lot of lyrics?
Are you talking about the others or just me in general?
Personally, in general.
Well, I write a lot of lyrics anyway. I do write songs. I have my own project, and it's subjective in terms of what we're doing with the others.
Yeah.
It's totally different.
Okay.
As what everybody else would be doing. I tend to do more stuff that's universal rather than what I feel, but it's a cross between writing stuff that's universally speaking, not to quote the Chili Peppers there, by the way, but I'd say more about what is actually present and what's actually going on rather than, and maybe what might be to come, I don't know, and maybe more the way I feel about things, I think, but I do a lot of musical writing as well. That's always a thing, and always a given. It's a good thing. With the others, it's totally a different approach. Like, I like hearing and bouncing off of other people's ideas in that sense. But when I got writing the stuff with Dom, it was very much a case of, say what you want to say. Particularly when you've got, tracks like William and Stan Bowles and things like that. It's very much from his perspective. And, I thought of very simplistic ideas. Just because I think simple to begin with is the way forward, rather than trying to overcomplicate things, because you can't do you that don't work in any situation at all. You always have to start simple. So that was what the approach is to the others, and particularly Dom.
So how did you first get involved with Dom? Was it
So I was working on another project with Joe, the drummer.
Oh yeah, he's a very strong drummer.
He's great. He's fantastic actually, and he's a great performer when it comes to playing live. And if you can see how he is. He's just absolute. He's full of energy when he plays, and that's great. It's a great thing to have. I think that's really important.
Oh yeah.
But he kind of got me into the group. They never really had a keyboard player, and I thought, okay, and I heard the stuff and I thought, well, I don't know how this is going to work, but I want to try and make it work the way I feel that it should work. And if there was anything that I would create with it, it would have to be totally different. I kind of regard this group, I think of the others as a progression, like I do with every other group. And I don't believe that every band or artist should just be stuck in a time warp, doing the same thing all the time. I think that there should be, there should be changes. There should be
progression.
I mean, I like when I hear things like Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin, I don't always listen to the classic stuff. I like the things that people don't like.
Same here, yeah. I'm the same.
I listen to back catalogues, and I like back catalogues, and you've got
stuff that perhaps wasn't a hit. the time.
Yeah,
an
but
album
you got
that
to
they planned.
but you got to put yourself in their perspective,
Yeah.
and you've got to kind of think, well, you know, as a creator, I wouldn't want to just be at this point. I want people to know that I can do A, B, and C. You know, I'm a big Kinks fan. I like
Same here, yeah.
I like their body of work. I like all of their stuff.
Yes.
And they again, their production was a progression of the way the band were at the time, and I think that's important to every band. You got the guy out of Kasabian as well. His solo stuff. Again, that's a progression. That's a progression of what he can do and what he can bring to the table if they ever do anything again. But I think that's the way to be. I think, you know, I like, you know, the Rolling Stones can get away with murder. They can do anything now. They can do absolutely anything that they want. You know, they can release that and it would be on an album and people would like that and they would go, oh, the dissonance in that. And, you know, I would disagree. I'd think, yeah, that's just the sound of a cigarette lighter falling to the table. But, you know, people do get away with things like that, and that's artistic. But I think, you know, progressively bands need that kind of recognition as musicians. Some people already have that musicianship. Some people learn as they get on. And that's, I think that's just human. You know, I think people, journalists, critics, all sorts, tend to think, oh, you know, they don't sound like they did back when they come out, hence why they don't, you know, they tend not to look outside of the box as much. But I think anything to make a sound stronger is worthy of being recorded on any format, whether it's on the phone, whether it's just an ambient recording, or whether it's done, you know, with a big bombastic production. I think it's worthy of being out there, of being known, because you got to. These are people's ideas. These are people's ideas. So, you know, like, when a producer comes on board, you know, and they can hear things that other people can't, for the sake of the song, and for the sake of the entire album or the record or whatever have you, you know, I think that is, it's worth having that. It's worth having that external input to make that stronger. But, you know, you can have that input within a group, and it would be as strong as the first idea. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, I mean, I think about these things all the time. It's part and parcel of being a musician, producer, and writer anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I always think, because like, since the pandemic started, I've, you know, personally been writing a lot more poems and songs than ever. And I always think that there's three kind of types of writers, in a sense. You've got your, in a sense, they can all merge too, so to a possible fourth type. But, you know, you've got your realist writers, your types that want to put it all down, like when Weller was young, you know, writing sort of 3-minute epics about reality, that perhaps later on become merged with the other types of songwriting, which tends to be more your Sid Barrett kind of, let's just forget about it all and be more escapist. Or there's, you know, so there's different types of approaches to songwriting and crafts. Obviously electronica also opened up perhaps different parts of pathways in the brain, different types of of songwriting. What would you? I mean, would you pull yourself as a Ray Davies or more of a sort of, I don't know, a kind of escapist?
No, because any of them people, you know, Sid or Ray, you know, they're, other than the fact that they're both totally different, and that, again, that comes down to being subjective within what they do. And you know, in music, lyric writing, songwriting in general, that is very much their own interpretation of the way things are and the way they want things to be, maybe, or luckily for them, things might actually have turned out the way that they've seen it. I think they're totally unique. I don't think I think each to their own, and it's very much, I speak for myself in terms of this is what I see rather than what they see. Like for I have my own, like I say, I have my own project. The band's called Caprica.
Interesting.
With a K.
What was your second name, by the way, Steph?
It's Vasilakis.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm a person that has many different guises.
Yeah, I'm a bit like that.
So,
fantastic though.
Yeah, sometimes it's Alex, sometimes it's Steph, depending on what day it is. But
do you straddle different genres or go
all the time?
Yeah.
I don't just play rock. I play jazz and blues and classical sometimes.
Oh, great.
But I don't write. I don't write like that. I mean, it's good to be influenced by loads of different things, I'd say. But yeah, I mean, as a writer, I steer. My influence is definitely hands down Ray. Definitely.
What, Ray Manzarek?
No, Ray Davies.
Ray Davies. I thought you meant on the keys.
But it, like, I don't think about what he would talk about. I think more. I think he's an influence, but I wouldn't say that I'd want to ever be like that, because nobody can be like that. I think, again, if you write like, for instance, the group that I have, we had a good couple. We've got a good couple of tunes. One of them's called No One's Safe, and the other one was the follow-up called World You Stole, that was soft released. They were mastered by. They were mixed and mastered by the great Paul Tipler, by the way.
Wow.
And they were both written before the virus and the pandemic, and it was basically a case of, I could see this coming, and I could see something happening. You know, from 2020 onwards, it's all downhill from here, to quote Josh Homme. But I mean, I like Josh Homme. I think he's great. Again, Queens of the Stone Age, that's a progression. That's a progression of sound and genre.
'Cause I've got an interesting question actually about US and American bands, because I always think that, you look at Metallica, a typical example of a band that get up on stage very arrogant at times, we're the greatest, yet they'll play Whiskey in the Jar, a British band, Thin Lizzy. Obviously all the influences for these bands, certainly since the 90s, you could argue America sort of took over quite a bit since Nirvana and everything. Even though we had Britpop, it kind of is as if the Americans moved in on the rock realm with Pearl Jam and all these giants, and the great days of the British bands of the 60s and 70s and 80s seemed a bit put in the shade a bit, which is strange, because I think it's got more to do with industry than talent.
Yeah, it is, totally, and more so nowadays than what it's ever been. Like, you have to you have to kind of think of industry as a space and a door. So you've got the door that is closing very quickly, and the talent just about gets through that door before it closes, and very, 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 very soon, in fact, if not already, it's probably closed. And because there's a lot of great new music. I listen a lot to Radio X, I listen a lot to Radio 2 Extra and all of that stuff.
Six Music.
Yeah, Six Music, and I hear some brilliant, not just artistic stuff, but I think of stuff that would really sell. And there are a lot of bands and a lot of artists that have got a lot of potential, but they just don't, you know, everything's got to be catered towards a specific chart, like rock chart, this chart, that chart. It's got to accumulate so many hits, so many views, listens, generate so many hundreds of thousands of things before it actually goes thing. And that's again, I knew that again, that was a thing that I knew that would happen. I knew that it was going to result to that. I'd done my degree thesis was about the shaping of bands and artists, but there was a little extract that contained a little bit about record labels, and there's not really going to be a lot of majors around. And this was back in 2008.
Christ.
And lo and behold, we've got all of three major labels, and a lot of subs now that are part of the majors. And you know, you've got your rough trades and beggars. They're all attached. There's always
so go back to the 80s, didn't they? Of course, the Smiths, the Cult.
Yeah. You know, all of that seems irrelevant in terms of industry, because it's more mechanical now, and I don't mean
just a name.
It's mechanical. And
brand. Not even that, really, just a name.
Yeah, it's just they are.
There's nothing really connected.
No, and
I mean, I was going to ask actually about influences as well, because obviously I grew up, and because you're great on the keys. Obviously, people like Mick Talbot, Jimmy Cliff, Jimmy Smith, and various people that I Ray Manzarek. But obviously, my favourite was always Dave Greenfield. What was your main influence on the keys? What was your sort of favourite keys man growing up?
So when I liked, I was very much a fan of Booker T.
Same here, yeah.
I loved what he'd done. I loved Jimmy Smith as well, and I loved Rick Wright. Rick Wright's keys as well. But I tend it's not just like when I got back into playing keys, I loved Hammond. And it was actually Jamie Cullen that got me back into playing Hammond, because that's a story and a half. But I saw him, like, I didn't see him, I was with him. He played like the same thing that I played, except this was in 2003. This was 2003. I saw him play, I think it might have been an Old Electro, and the sound was, you know, it had the Hammond on it, and I thought, this is brilliant. And he was in a band before he exploded, and I won't tell you too much about it, but I thought, this is brilliant. And it was him and another friend of mine that kind of got me into playing that. I started listening more to Pink Floyd a lot, and the way that the Hammond was used in that stuff, and then, you know, some of the later Kinks stuff, the way it was used in that, rather than just, you know, a lot of jazz blues, you know, like, but later on you kind of, you learn tricks of the trade, you learn more about theoretical things and technical things, and you pick up technique. You definitely pick it up. Some people are instilled with technique, I believe, especially the youngsters. But for me, it's been very much a learning curve. I love Ray Manzarek as well. You know, the stuff that he does on the left hand, things like that is brilliant.
And what about lyrics as well at the moment? What would you say when you finished what you were going to say first, but moving on when you finished, lyrics as well, what are your sort of preoccupations at the moment? Because obviously you don't write them for Dom. I'm just curious what your personal preoccupations are lyric wise. What sort of, what's your mind sort of running with? Are they very sort of personal lyrics, or are you writing on politics?
Mostly, yeah, at the moment, stream of consciousness. If I think of something that I say to somebody, like some wise words of really bad wisdom, I think, yeah, that's something that I could say in a song, because I think that saying it in a song is much greater than actually saying it. I think these things are more effective. They sell more. And I think it would be a stupid thing to just say, yeah, I'm doing it just for the sake of art. But if you know that there are rights and wrongs of what you say and what you don't say. I'm not saying about personal things. You can be as personal as you like. You know, the other's body of work is personal to Dom, and you know, that kind of got me back into writing in that stream of consciousness kind of thing. But if you can do that in the sense of, you know, if you say, I don't even think it's a case anymore of something being overly catchy. I think it's something that really means something to the listener. I think, you know, that's something that screeches out. Every bit of music is hope. Everything. It's hope. People listen to music for hope, to make them feel better. It's a feel-good thing. Even when people are depressed, they seek some sort of solace in music. And I say solace with a lisp. Yeah. But yeah, it's true. I mean, people really want something to take with them and to go back to and go, yeah, you know what, you're absolutely right. I feel much better now after hearing that. You know, and it isn't lyrics, it can be like a motif, a hook or anything. But that's the way I feel. I think that that doesn't mean that I concur with all of the chart-topping stuff at all, because I bloody well don't.
No, it's just rigged, in it, half of it.
Well, yeah, it is and it's not. Most of it is, but
just product placement, marketing, and different guys. They'll have what they're given if they're told it's all there is and the best there is. It's a bit like anything else. I mean, brainwashing can be done in any industry. I think with the arts, it's particularly tragic, particularly music. Because I think maybe that's one of the reasons, like the Campbell soup tin, I suppose, is that Warhol even makes you think of it. It's just like all that, whether you call it realism or whether it's your Gary Newman or your you know, as you said earlier, Sid Barrett, you know, painting pictures in totally radically different areas. That you could say, well, Sid actually might be rambling on about unicorns and what's it, but actually he's making metaphors with reality. Or Gary Newman might be on about robots raping people, but that is a metaphor for reality. So it gets complicated about what realism writing often is, if you see what I mean, because it's all subjective to the listener. But it is like something dangerous, a little bit like some of the debates and the conspiracy lot about COVID and people doing public demonstrations. There is a feeling a little bit that the sort of the John Lennons of this world, the Bob Marleys of the world, it's not that they can't exist or wouldn't be able to exist. It's as if they've been sort of smoked out of existence by the industry.
They will be. Because
there probably are people like that around. Not as great, but
yeah. Give it 15 years from now, or less, maybe 10. I think when all of the generation of the 60s, the people that have made that impact on the world, when they're not here, that will be a frustrating period. Because there's gonna. I had this conversation with somebody earlier. Give it a while, and the kids that are born now, this very second, give it 20 years for them. They're not gonna have Scooby-Doo. They're not gonna know who John Lennon is. They're not gonna tell you who Bob Dylan is. Not at all. I struggled to kind of like get some sort of satisfaction from a guy. On Sunday I was in a cafe and the B-52's coming, and I went, B-52, I knew the owner of the cafe, and he put it on, and they were playing Love Shack, and this boy was like 17, and I went, what, really, B-52s? And I thought, I'm expecting you to know who that is. If you know the owner of the shop, then surely you know his tastes and things like that. No. He's like, I'm only 17, I don't know this.
Yeah.
So, right, great. We're in for a hell of a ride then later on.
Yeah. It's very sad because
hope.
Everything's at their fingertips, isn't it?
Yeah.
And when we were kids, I suppose I was brought up in a period where you for some reason we would listen to stuff from years ago. I mean, you'd see 1940s, 1930s things on the telly in the 80s and 90s, and you didn't not watch it because it was before your time.
No.
Yet now there's more at the fingertips, but there is an odd sort of brain drain amongst a large section. It's not always even youth.
No.
It's strange because, again, we were for so long, we had an intelligent edge, and weirdly, places like California that I've been to in recent years, when you mix with the musicians, there seems that they've got more of a realism edge almost than we have, even though we think of them as up in the clouds. There's so many boy bands and manufactured dance music.
Yeah, sure.
And so many of the populace seem to like it and don't seem to have any brains. But it's the same in America too. Yeah, because I was thinking, see what you were saying a bit about the industry earlier on, and the way that talent's been sort of smoked out, is what I was saying. But one of the aspects that never seems to get mentioned, I always think is absolutely crucial, is imagine, during your teens, your formative years, you had a rich uncle nobody knew about, and you were able to you were able to not have to work too much in horrible jobs, so you could concentrate on, your artistic skills, and go to college.
Well, that's actually true.
And people had grants. That's what I'm talking about. Years ago, in the 70s, 80s, 90s, there were education and maintenance grants from the government. And a lot of artists, that's how they cut their teeth. They would form bands at college, but now they can't afford to go to college, or they can't afford not to work. And I think often that slows down the artistic process. That's been something as well. I don't know what you would feel about that, but I've always felt
that's part and parcel of life. That's unfortunate. I don't think the industry is catered for everybody's needs, and I think that would be completely naive to think that it is. But at the moment, the way technology is at the moment, it's provided platforms for people to believe that is actually the case, and everybody has a very good shot at doing something totally ludicrous in order just for cheap recognition.
Bit like reality TV of music, like a commercial idea, rather than like selling out before you even had a chance to be an artist yet.
Yeah. The sex and drugs without the rock and roll, basically.
Yeah.
And that's the way it's been for the last, I would say, 20 years.
Yeah, I agree.
Everybody wants that lifestyle, and because everything is so easy to access, because everything is so accessible,
it's like almost there's less, almost as a result.
They could do it, so they don't tend to need to crave success or what they think is success. They do everything in excess, and usually it results in disappointment and disillusion. And I think that's been part and parcel of everything over the last 40 years, maybe 50, 60 years. Like, again, it's not for everybody. You have to know how to play the game rather than have the game play you. And at the moment, the game is playing everybody. And you talk about reality TV. They have a new programme now on ITV called Walk the Line, which I watched the other night. And I know one of the contenders on it, actually. And someone that I know works on it. But I think it's a good idea. But I think it's very not derogatory, but I think it's condescending for the people that go on it and been picked to go on it, and I think it gives that vibe to a lot of. So if any musician watches it, I think they might feel that. It's just TV. That's all. Reality TV is just TV, whether it's music or reality. It's just done for TV because, like, the first people to have done that, to start that off, or the origins of it, was actually Channel 4. They started the channel with more factual information, and then they ventured into the whole American idealism of, think big, think outside the box, big as you like. So, okay, right, we'll do this Big Brother then. So that's when it all started. And then it's like, the can of worms is open, and the worms manifest into monsters, and the monsters are these uncontrollable things now that can't be destroyed, and they won't be destroyed, and until you go back to the origin and you stop the origin of it, or you stop the people that are feeding the beast by saying no, don't give them that. And that's the only way that is going to be prevented. Otherwise it's going to continue, and it will continue until it can't continue anymore, and they run out of ideas, and pretty soon they will run out of ideas, because the ideas that they've got, some of them are good, some of them are terrible. It will be a case of, one day it will be a case of we'll turn somebody into a celebrity just by we'll knock on someone's door and we'll document their life for a day, and they can win either a lot of money or a lot of fame simply on the merit of their personality, whether they're boring or exciting to watch. You know, it'll be like that.
Makes me think of Forrest Gump or Donald Trump being the extreme of some strange figure plucked from, you know, a surreal circumstance. So perhaps what you're saying could happen. I mean,
well, definitely, I can see that happening because it's a judgmental society as it is. When I was growing up, certainly, like, if you didn't have a crop top, if you didn't look like a London city boy or somebody that's, you know, famous at all, if you didn't look what the normal people of the world would deem as normal, and that's not a thing anymore because nobody's anything now. Anybody can be whatever they want and they can get away with it. But back in the day, you couldn't.
Gender, looks, everything. I mean,
yeah,
Mods
like,
and Rockers is as far away from that as you can get.
Yeah,
We are in Brighton, but
yeah, exactly. And even that, I had a discussion about that. That's kind of sort of the origins of it, but even then, it weren't the origins, because, like, every time somebody talks about Mods and Rockers, they talk about the Who, they talk about they talk about all of the four English bands. They talk about all of that, the British invasion, and it weren't all about that at all, because all of them, if a person takes the time out to really educate themselves, they will find that all of the bands were listening to the same music. They were all influenced by the same people, by the same race, creed and culture, and that inspired them to make their music. It inspired their progression. So you gotta look back to the roots. It goes from classical to jazz to blues to rock and roll to rock, and then heavy rock, then heavy metal, and then progressively progressive rock, and then loads of other things in between, and soul music as well, and soul blues, reggae, and all of that. That, you know, that comes into it a lot.
Reggae.
And yeah, absolutely. You know, everything becomes its own identity.
Funny, yeah.
But it all comes from somewhere.
Yeah,
and that's the problem I have when people go, "Oh, the Mods are all about the Who. Oh, Paul Weller was a mod." No, he was not a mod. He just adopted that fashion because that's what he liked.
Yeah.
When, you know, the rockers liked Elvis Presley and Eddie Cochran, and people like that. But so did the Kinks and the Who.
Oh, yeah.
So did a lot of players.
There's something else, didn't they? The Who did a version.
They didn't just listen to that. They listened to skiffle and blues, and, you know, it's endless, but they are all in one the same. People will argue a toss and say, no, they're not the same, they're all different. Yeah, they're different in terms of their musical identity and who they are, but when you go back to it, they all listen to the same thing. And this is what music ultimately is all about. It is about bringing people together in that sense, whether you like something that has progressed into something heavy or not. And it's artistically endless. And I think that there is room for talent to make something incredibly new. There could be a revolution in music, but there isn't. And I don't think it's being allowed because, you know, it's the same thing. No one wants to take any risks anymore. Well, but that's gone.
It's funny, I did go to a gig at Ali Pali a couple of years ago that really shook me up, that I thought was a mixture of things, really. The actual gig was fantastic, and it reminded me of what the famous Syd Barrett or the early Pink Floyd gig must have been like. It was a band called King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, who I thought were... I went along, and it was funny because, I really enjoyed a lot of the stuff like Concrete Crumbling Castle, rather, and all these things. But then there were other things when I looked into their work, but I thought, wow, if this was like 40 years ago, yes, this track could be from back then, but then this band couldn't exist then because I put something else on by them that was some sort of thrash metal experimental album that was awful. In comparison, even though I'm open-minded, I thought, it's just not right for them, but all their fans love it. Right. I thought, how unusual.
Right, it's unusual because it's unusual maybe to you and to people that think that way, but again, this is about genre.
Weller was an example of... Was everyone hated the Style Council? There you go. Well, how come they hated the Style Council? The Style Council did get to the top of the charts. They sold a lot.
So, this is another thing. Vocally, Weller could do much more than what he could do in the Jam, and he had the voice for it. And that's the thing. The music of any band and artist sometimes can represent that person. However, that person can also represent the music in the sense that they can do much more than what they did the first time around. And again, it's progression. It's more about what they like and what they bring to the table. With Paul Weller, his voice is very soulful. So, you listen to stuff that's on Stanley Road, for instance, like The Changing Man and all of that is solo stuff. His voice is the identity. That's the identity of Paul Weller. It's not the identity of the Jam. The Jam, that was his catalyst. That was his thing to go, screw society, screw this, screw that, whatever, in his way. That was his way of doing it.
I suppose there's two issues people always mention. The other two, of course, who had a pretty dreadful time of it after, certainly where Bruce should have been in The Who or utilised in a band like The Who, really.
Who's that?
Bruce Foxton. I always think he would have been excellent in The Who. And his career kind of plateaued. Rick's kind of went really badly wrong after for various reasons. He was in a band called Time UK. There was a strike at the BBC and they lost out. It's quite a talented guy, Jimmy Edwards. I actually put a Wikipedia page up for him when he died because I thought, come on, this guy's... And it's still up, so that was pleasing to know. But yeah, what's your views on that as well? Because again, you had what you're talking about, fans that couldn't move on from the original. Yet when you look at the Jam's music, particularly in the last couple of years, it does show a bit of that beginning of the catalyst, the progression you're talking about with the council. So it's quite complex, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, because again, it's more about the voice behind it, and later on you can hear that soul, you can hear the that want, that yearn to do much more than, this is very simple, I want to do more, I want to go in a different direction here, but not because I want to go in a different direction, because it actually suits me. And that is when you find your identity, and that can happen at any time in a person's career. Even if you've peaked, you can peak even more by finding out that you're actually better than what you thought you were. And sometimes that can be later. Sometimes that can happen right at the start. But I always say to all of my musical friends, I say it to everybody in my band, I say it to everybody I know, you're never too old to kind of find yourself. And it all depends on how you preserve yourself as well.
Because in music, that's a real challenge, particularly because of perception. Particularly for can you imagine if someone was starting up in music at the age of 40 or 50, particularly these days with ageism. Yet, as you say, it is because of the way society's gone with technology and societal changes. Now, perhaps with COVID, more the lockdowns affecting live performances, music has been took as a sort of lesser thing, whereas it was crucial to my sort of generation.
I think that is, again, that's something that's been forced upon people to do, but as a matter of fact, I believe that it's a good way of presenting yourself. It saves a lot of hassle going out and doing it live, but there is nothing better than doing it live. There is nothing better than playing to a live audience. However, things now have to be approached with a different mindset. They have to be dealt with in a relevant mindset. And if you want to be heard, you have to follow a protocol, unfortunately. And you have to, again, it's very much, what it's become is actually very dog eat dog. So, you have to look at other people, see what they're doing, sometimes adapt. And if it works, it works. If it don't, then try something else. But don't change the thing that makes you unique just for the sake of the industry. Keep your integrity to a certain extent, I think, but know what your USP is. I think that's important. Once you know your identity and your USP, that's when you start to capitalise on your talent, I'd say. I don't mean capitalise in, I can sing. I can actually produce a sound, so I'm going to put it up on fucking Instagram or whatever. And people will like it because I've done that, because I can sing just about in tune. Yeah, everybody can do that. If people can whistle, then great. That's something that people, can easily achieve. The new everything now, the Instagram, TikTok, all of it, it's good. I think the people that use it properly are the cleverer ones. I don't necessarily mean the kids now, but it's half good, half of it is a bumpy ride. And I don't think that it's going to stop there. That, depending on what way you look at it, it will be difficult from here on out for people to actually get credibility artistically anyway.
Because TikTok is something I've never actually, because I can't stand joining the crowd.
I hate it. It is totally.
Looked at it. I know it's just short clips, isn't it? But
yeah, it's totally a join the crowd, tag along thing to do.
See, conformity's become so much part of life. I mean, it always was to a degree. You go to school in a uniform. It's always been part of life. Join the army, you have to conform to something at any time in your life. But it does seem nowadays, particularly with technology, that rather than enabling freedom, it seems more of a controlling thing. Well, going back, your influences as well, or rather genre styles. With your other band, what genres are you doing? Would you, if you were forced to say, in that sort of field with your other band?
Bit of everything. Bit of what I'm influenced. Bit of what everybody else is influenced. It's as simple as that.
Would you say it's more kind of, is it different, very different sound to the others? if you had to describe? Or
There's
more progressive or more synth sounds?
It's progressive. There's elements of that there. I always think of everything that I've done before and bring it to the table, and I try and kind of mishmash it and then put it together and see what happens. But I don't, when I write anything, or whenever anyone else, I try to say, don't think of anybody else or anything else. Don't think of chord progressions that have already been done. Don't worry about that, because it doesn't matter. Anything to help the song be better than what it is, that's fine with me. That's all I think. So it's like Joe, like, if he does anything, if he makes a suggestion, or, you know, if anybody else makes a suggestion to anything, I think, yeah, great. I think good. Yeah, if it works, it works. If it don't, it don't. It doesn't matter. That's my approach to that. So,
I mean, obviously you've joined for this album as well. It seems you brought a lot of more kind of variety or depth in a way to the sound. Do you want to take it in any different directions, or is that something that's under wraps?
So. Yeah, I think so, because again, it's progression.
Yeah.
Again, that word again, because, you know, I wouldn't want to just get in this and think, oh yeah, I'll do this. I'll just do the same chords, do the same sounds all the time. I don't want to do that. I want to do something that's different.
Yeah.
And bring something different to the table. Like when I was asked to do this in the first place, I thought, yeah, fourth dimension. There's got to be a fourth dimension here. There's got to be another aspect of this that can actually work. And I've heard it before, like, it can work. It can easily work. And it has worked. And when we go and do this record in the studio, there'll be a lot more than just what you've heard. There'll be a bit more interesting. And it's not interesting because for the sake of it. It'll probably be because I think this will work, rather than I'm putting in this sound because I like that. It's got to fit with the music. The music, that's important. But ultimately, again, the identity of this group is very much Dom. He's the one. When you hear a record, a song of the others, it's Dominic. It's there. It's him. It's the same with anybody.
Yeah, he's very great at putting his personal thoughts down, autobiographical.
Yeah.
Writer, you know.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, it's his voice at the end of the day, and it's that sound of his voice, it's the tone. You know that it's him, and that's the point that I'm trying to make. You know, when you listen to back catalogues of people's work from the past, it's not about just the music. It's about that. It's about that voice and the journey that voice has had within the sound, and how well it can adapt, or should I say, how well it sounds and suits what they are, what the other guys are doing. So that's what I take with this. But again, as I say, there's no real rights or wrongs here.
Well, it's like individuals like you look back on, like Robert Palmer or Brian Ferry or David Bowie, all these people. Yeah. They'd often, you know, alienate fans for parts of their career, and then have, you know, big fans for other parts of their career, whether it's from Ziggy Stardust to the Berlin era, or whether it's from Virginia Plain to Avalon.
Yeah, but you see, the thing is, that's the thing. They had producers that. They were not just their producers, they were friends of theirs, they knew them inside out. You know, if I had my way, I'd have bloody Brian Eno do one of their records, but that's money, that's time. We don't know Brian Eno, he doesn't know us, you know, that's fucking hell, you know, I mean, that's the thing. So we've got to do this the best way that we possibly can, and you know, I don't want to do something that I feel is like, oh yeah, I'll just do this half-assed. I don't want to do that. I think about arrangements, I think about all these kind of little things, you know, and
it's good though, your democracy as a songwriting team as well, though, which is good, which I always like with bands.
Yeah, but democracy comes within here as well, within the artist, I think, rather than just, I'm going to bring this idea to the table and then you can do whatever you want to do. So.
Alright, well, it's been lovely chatting, mate. It's been long enough, it's been in an hour. So
Yeah,
I've really
definitely.
enjoyed it, mate. It's been great. Thank you. It's been awesome.
No,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you.
I'll see you again soon, I hope.
Yeah.